It was meant to be an ordinary evening of political discussion, a gathering of students and community members on a Utah campus to hear from conservative activist Charlie Kirk, founder of Turning Point USA. But what began as a routine campus event quickly turned into a scene of chaos and fear when a shot was fired, sending the audience into panic and prompting an immediate law enforcement response. The event, held in a packed auditorium, had drawn hundreds of attendees, many of them students eager to engage with Kirk's outspoken views on culture, politics, and higher education. Security was present, but like most campus speaking events, the atmosphere at the start was calm. Witnesses describe a lively audience, with both supporters and critics in the room, creating the kind of charged but expected atmosphere that often surrounds Kirk's appearances. According to reports, the incident unfolded midway through the program. As Kirk was addressing the audience, a loud crack pierced the air. At first, some attendees thought it was a microphone malfunction or a disruption outside the venue. But within seconds, the reality became clear. A shot had been fired. Screams erupted from the crowd, and the room descended into confusion as students and audience members scrambled for safety. Eyewitnesses recount the moment vividly. Some describe diving to the ground, others rushing toward exits, and many clinging to friends in fear. One attendee told reporters, "We didn't know where it came from, or if there would be more shots. Everyone was just trying to get out." The chaos underscored the vulnerability that people feel in public spaces when violence suddenly intrudes. Law enforcement officers, who had been stationed near the venue, reacted immediately. They moved to secure the building, ushering people toward safe exits while attempting to locate the source of the gunfire. Within minutes, police had cordoned off the area, ordering attendees to shelter in place or evacuate in an orderly fashion. Ambulances and additional emergency units rushed to the scene, their sirens cutting through the night. Initial reports indicated that no one inside the auditorium was struck, though the shock of the incident was enough to send several people to hospitals for evaluation of panic attacks and minor injuries sustained in the scramble to flee. Investigators quickly began piecing together the sequence of events, reviewing surveillance footage and interviewing witnesses to determine exactly how the shot had been fired and from where. Charlie Kirk himself was escorted offstage by security. In video clips circulating online, he can be seen pausing briefly as the noise echoed through the room before being surrounded by security personnel and led to safety. Kirk later confirmed on social media that he was unharmed, thanking law enforcement for their swift action and expressing concern for the audience members who had been caught in the frightening ordeal. The incident raised immediate questions. Was the shot fired from inside the auditorium or from outside the building? Was the activist himself the target, or was it an unrelated act of violence nearby? Police declined to speculate in the hours following the event, focusing instead on securing the area and reassuring the public that there was no ongoing threat. Their caution highlighted the need for accuracy in an environment where speculation spreads quickly online. Outside the campus, parents arrived frantically, trying to reach their children. Students huddled together, many calling family members to assure them of their safety. For some, the night will be remembered not as a political conversation, but as a traumatic brush with potential tragedy. The fear and confusion of those minutes left a lasting mark, one that will linger long after the headlines fade. As details continued to emerge, investigators confirmed they had recovered ballistic evidence, though they stopped short of providing specifics about the weapon or the trajectory of the shot. Authorities emphasized that the investigation remained ongoing, and they urged the public to come forward with any video or information that might aid their efforts. The Utah campus quickly became the center of national attention. News outlets across the country carried live updates, replaying shaky cell phone footage from inside the auditorium that captured the moment of panic. Images of students crouched under chairs and rushing toward exits served as stark reminders of how quickly violence, or even the perception of it, can disrupt civic life. For many in attendance, the incident was a deeply personal experience. Students who had come expecting debate and dialogue were instead left shaken, their trust in the safety of campus events rattled. One student described the fear bluntly. It felt like nowhere was safe. You hear about things like this happening, but when it's your campus, your event, it's different. It's terrifying. The incident also had an immediate effect on campus operations. Classes were temporarily suspended the following day as law enforcement continued their investigation. Security presence on campus was visibly heightened, with patrol cars, uniformed officers, and canine units visible near student gathering areas. University officials issued a statement expressing relief that no lives were lost, while also pledging a full review of security procedures for future events. In the wider community, reactions ranged from relief that the situation had not escalated further to concern about the growing atmosphere of hostility surrounding political events. While it remained unclear what motivated the act, the incident fit into a troubling pattern of disruptions and threats that have increasingly plagued public forums across the United States. As the investigation continued, the search for answers focused on key questions. Who fired the shot? What was their intent? How did they manage to carry a weapon near a campus venue hosting a high-profile figure? And what steps need to be taken to ensure such a scene is not repeated? Law enforcement promised transparency as the facts came together, but acknowledged that the road to full clarity might take time. For Charlie Kirk, the incident underscored the risks that come with his role as a polarizing figure in the national conversation. While he escaped unharmed, the events of that night reinforced the reality that public figures and the audiences that gather to hear them often operate in environments where tensions can spill over into violence. As the sun rose the following morning, the Utah campus began to return to a semblance of normalcy. Students trickled back to classrooms, faculty resumed lectures, and campus leaders worked to reassure their community. But beneath the surface, the memories of the shot, the chaos, and the fear remained fresh. The incident had left its mark, reminding all who were there of how quickly safety can be shattered and how fragile public spaces can feel in today's climate. In the end, the story of that night was not of tragedy, but of disruption and fear. Yet it highlighted the vulnerability of public gatherings, the bravery of those who responded quickly, and the resilience of a community determined to move forward. The investigation into the shot fired at Kirk's event continues, but for the students, staff, and audience members who lived through it, the memory of that moment will not soon be forgotten.
The incident in Utah, where a shot was fired during a campus event featuring conservative activist Charlie Kirk, has raised urgent questions that extend far beyond one night, one speaker, or one auditorium. At the heart of this story lies a broader issue: the security and safety of public gatherings in an era of heightened political polarization, where campuses, lecture halls, and community spaces have increasingly become flashpoints for tension and, at times, violence. Security at political events has long been a delicate balance. On one hand, these forums are meant to be accessible to the public, places where students, citizens, and communities can come together to hear, debate, and challenge ideas. On the other, they are potential targets for disruption, intimidation, and even physical danger. The Utah shooting scare highlights just how fragile that balance can be and how quickly an atmosphere of dialogue can turn into one of fear. For universities, the question is particularly challenging. Campuses are designed as open environments, meant to foster free exchange of ideas and encourage public participation. Yet that very openness can leave them vulnerable. Administrators must weigh the desire for openness against the responsibility to protect both speakers and students. When a figure as high-profile and polarizing as Charlie Kirk visits, those stakes rise even higher. Security protocols must be more robust, yet the very presence of metal detectors, bag checks, and armed officers changes the character of the campus environment, making it feel less like a place of learning and more like a fortified zone. The Utah incident underscores the difficulty of this dilemma. Reports indicate that campus security was in place, and law enforcement officers were on site. But despite precautions, a shot was fired. Whether from inside or outside the venue remains under investigation. That fact alone raises questions. Were entry points adequately monitored? Were there gaps in perimeter security? Were officers trained and equipped to respond to an active threat scenario inside a lecture hall? The answers will determine whether this was an unavoidable incident or a failure of preparation. This event also shines a light on the rising trend of threats directed at public figures. Conservative speakers, in particular, from Ben Shapiro to Candace Owens, have faced protests and disruptions on campuses across the country. On the other side of the political spectrum, progressive speakers have also been met with hostility in certain environments. In every case, the institutions hosting these events face the same question. How do you allow controversial voices to be heard while ensuring the physical safety of everyone involved? The Utah shooting scare suggests that existing protocols may not be keeping pace with the risks. Law enforcement officials stress that no security system is perfect. Even the most carefully planned operations can be vulnerable to sudden acts of violence. Yet the public expects protection. And when that protection seems insufficient, confidence erodes. Parents who send their children to campus events want assurance that the university has done everything possible to prevent harm. Students themselves expect that their safety will be safeguarded even in emotionally charged political settings. Each failure, each frightening incident undermines that trust. The implications extend beyond this single campus. Across the United States, universities are reevaluating their event security policies. Some are considering stricter entry checks, more visible police presence, and tighter control of venues. Others worry that such measures could stifle the openness of campus life, making students feel as though they are living in an environment of constant surveillance. The Utah incident may accelerate a trend towards securitization of public events, but at what cost to the character of higher education? Another dimension of this issue lies in the broader social climate. The United States has seen a rise in political polarization, with debates over culture, speech, and identity often boiling over into anger and confrontation. In this environment, public events featuring outspoken figures are especially charged. For organizers, the calculus is not only about preventing violence, but also about managing tensions, de-escalating conflicts before they ignite, and ensuring that security personnel are prepared for the unexpected. The shot fired in Utah illustrates how quickly tension can shift into crisis. Campus security experts emphasize that preparation is key. This includes threat assessments prior to events, close coordination between university officials and local police, and clear communication with students about safety procedures. It also involves training security personnel in crowd management and active shooter protocols. Yet these measures require significant resources, and many institutions face budget constraints. The challenge becomes not only logistical but financial. How to secure public events in an era of rising threats without draining limited resources. The Utah incident also prompts reflection on the responsibilities of event organizers themselves. Turning Point USA, the group associated with Charlie Kirk, has long drawn large and sometimes contentious crowds. Their events are known to spark both passionate support and heated opposition. In this context, ensuring adequate security is not simply the job of the hosting university, but also of the organization bringing the speaker. Collaborative planning, funding for additional security, and coordination with law enforcement are essential. The question becomes whether enough was done in this case and what lessons will be applied going forward. For students and attendees, the security concerns translate into lived experiences of fear and uncertainty. Many who were present in Utah that night described feeling vulnerable and unprotected, unsure of what was happening or whether they were safe. Their voices highlight an important reality. Security is not just about protocols and personnel, but about the confidence that attendees feel in the safety of the space they occupy. When that confidence is shaken, the very purpose of public discourse, to foster open exchange, is undermined. Critics argue that the increasing securitization of campus events could itself contribute to polarization. The sight of armed officers, metal detectors, and barricades may send a message that certain speakers are inherently dangerous, or that free expression is incompatible with safety. Others counter that these measures are necessary, pointing to incidents like Utah as evidence that the risks are real and that failing to prepare is unacceptable. The debate reflects a deeper tension in American life: how to balance freedom and safety in an environment where both feel under constant threat. The Utah incident also intersects with the broader national conversation about gun violence. The reality that a firearm could be discharged near a campus event raises familiar questions about accessibility, enforcement, and prevention. While the investigation continues, the mere fact that attendees believed they were under fire was enough to spark panic. In this sense, the incident connects to the lived experience of millions of Americans who practice active shooter drills, worry about gun violence in public spaces, and wonder whether safety can ever be guaranteed. Looking forward, universities and public institutions may adopt new protocols. These could include controlled entry points with bag checks, pre-registration requirements for attendance, and closer monitoring of potential threats on social media. Yet these measures carry costs: financial, logistical, and cultural. Each step towards greater security risks altering the character of public life, making open forums feel more like secured checkpoints. The Utah incident will accelerate this debate, forcing institutions to confront how far they are willing to go to prevent a repeat scenario. In the end, the security concerns raised by the Utah shooting scare go far beyond the walls of one auditorium. They touch on fundamental questions about the future of free speech, the safety of civic gatherings, and the resilience of American democracy in a time of division. The challenge for universities, law enforcement, and communities is not only to prevent violence, but to preserve the spirit of open dialogue that events like these are meant to embody. The shot fired in Utah was a moment of fear and disruption, but its implications may be lasting. It reminds us that public life is fragile, that safety cannot be taken for granted, and that institutions must constantly adapt to new risks. As campuses and communities move forward, the lesson is clear. Security is not an afterthought. It is a central part of ensuring that voices can be heard, debates can take place, and democracy can function in the face of danger.
The moment a shot rang out during Charlie Kirk's campus event in Utah did not remain confined to one auditorium. Within minutes, the news spread across social media. Local outlets began breaking coverage, and the incident became a national talking point. The political and public reactions that followed revealed not only concern for safety, but also the deep divisions in American society about speech, politics, and violence. Charlie Kirk himself was among the first to respond. Taken to safety by his security team, he later issued a statement on social media, thanking law enforcement for their swift action and expressing relief that no one had been injured. His tone was firm, calling the incident an unacceptable attack on free expression. He framed it as part of a larger trend, arguing that conservative voices are increasingly targeted on campuses. For his supporters, this reaction underscored a narrative they already believed, that free speech for conservatives is under siege. Turning Point USA, the organization Kirk leads, also released a statement. They described the incident as a shocking example of hostility against free dialogue and vowed not to be intimidated. The group highlighted the bravery of students who remained calm under pressure while demanding universities take stronger measures to ensure safety at events. Their framing made clear that they saw the incident not simply as a moment of fear, but as part of a wider battle over campus culture and free speech rights. Political leaders quickly weighed in. Republican figures across the country condemned the incident, expressing support for Kirk and calling it evidence of rising hostility toward conservatives. Some framed it as symptomatic of what they described as a culture of intolerance on college campuses. Their language was often pointed, warning that if political violence is not confronted, the consequences could be dire. Democratic leaders, while equally condemning the act of violence, emphasized the importance of keeping campuses safe for all speakers, regardless of political ideology. Some stressed that America cannot normalize firearms near schools and public events, tying the incident to the broader issue of gun safety. Others called for restraint in politicizing the moment, noting that investigations were still underway and motives had not been established. These divergent tones reflected the larger partisan divide over how to frame such incidents. On campus, student reactions were immediate and emotional. Many expressed shock and fear, describing the panic that swept through the auditorium as people rushed for exits. Some conservative students echoed Kirk's view, saying they felt their voices were under attack.
Others, less aligned with his politics, stressed that while they disagreed with his views, no one should face violence for speaking. This mix of perspectives revealed that the campus community was not united in politics, but largely united in its rejection of violence. For parents, the incident was deeply personal. Many rushed to campus as news spread, fearing for the safety of their children. Their reactions were captured in emotional interviews, relief that no one had been harmed, but frustration that an event of this nature could be threatened at all. Several questioned whether universities are prepared to host such controversial events safely, and whether their children were being placed at unnecessary risk. Their voices added a powerful human dimension to the broader political debate. On social media, the reactions were fast, polarized, and amplified. Supporters of Kirk rallied around hashtags of solidarity, praising his resilience and demanding accountability from the university. Critics, while condemning violence, accused Kirk and his organization of exploiting the incident for political gain. Conspiracy theories also circulated, with some doubting the details of the event and others speculating about motives without evidence. This chaotic swirl of reactions highlighted both the speed and volatility of the modern information ecosystem. Media outlets reflected these divides. Conservative media emphasized the danger faced by Kirk, framing it as proof that conservative voices are under attack and arguing for stronger protections of free speech. Liberal-leaning outlets reported the facts but placed greater emphasis on the issue of gun access, situating the incident within the larger conversation about America's struggle with firearms. Neutral outlets attempted to balance both narratives, focusing on the immediate security concerns and the ongoing investigation. The different frames underscored how one incident can become multiple stories, each shaped by political perspective. The law enforcement community also weighed in. Police officials praised the quick response of officers on the scene, noting that training and preparation likely prevented a greater tragedy. At the same time, they urged the public to withhold judgment until the investigation was complete. Their measured tone contrasted with the heated political rhetoric, reminding the public that while reactions are immediate, facts often take longer to establish. Among academics and free speech advocates, the incident sparked renewed debate. Some argued that universities must redouble their commitment to protecting controversial speakers, emphasizing that free expression is meaningless without security. Others countered that heightened security measures risk militarizing campuses and changing their character. Still others used the moment to call for broader dialogue on how to reduce hostility in American politics. These reactions showed that even within academic circles, consensus on the right path forward is elusive. Internationally, the story received attention as well. Foreign outlets reported it as another example of America's struggles with political violence and gun culture. Some contrasted the United States environment with their own, where political disagreements rarely carry the same risk of firearms. These global reactions reinforced how incidents like Utah's affect not only domestic discourse, but also international perceptions of American democracy. For the broader public, the Utah incident fed into a growing sense of unease about safety in civic life. Over the past decade, Americans have witnessed disruptions, threats, and tragedies in schools, houses of worship, shopping centers, and political gatherings. Each incident, whether deadly or not, contributes to a perception that public spaces are no longer safe. The shot fired at Kirk's event became part of that larger narrative, reinforcing fears about vulnerability in everyday life. Reactions also highlighted generational differences. Older Americans, often more accustomed to robust debate without the specter of violence, expressed dismay at what they saw as a breakdown of civil discourse. Younger Americans, many of whom grew up with active shooter drills, were less surprised, but no less shaken. For them, the incident felt like another reminder of the risks they live with every day. These differences revealed how shared events can resonate differently across age groups, shaping how they view politics and public life. Ultimately, the political and public reactions to the Utah incident reveal a nation both united and divided. United in condemning violence, but divided in interpreting its meaning. To conservatives, it was evidence of intolerance and hostility toward their ideas. To liberals, it was part of a broader crisis of gun safety and political culture. To students and families, it was a frightening disruption of what should have been a safe exchange of views. To the world, it was another chapter in America's struggle with violence and division. As investigations continue and details emerge, these reactions will evolve, but the incident has already left its mark. It has energized supporters, galvanized critics, and deepened the debates about free speech, safety, and political polarization. In that sense, the shot fired in Utah will echo far beyond the campus auditorium, reverberating through the nation's ongoing struggle to reconcile openness with security and dialogue with division.